The sun was just starting to rise over the small fishing town of Nettle Bay. Orange light stretched across the water, making it sparkle like gold. Jack Mallory stood on the deck of his old fishing boat, the Marlin Whisperer. He had owned the boat for over 20 years. It wasn't fancy, but it was strong, and it always got him home. Jack liked quiet mornings. No noise, no people, just the sea and the sound of gulls. He sipped his black coffee and stretched his back. Fishing was hard work, but it was simple. Jack liked simple. He untied the boat from the dock, started the engine, and slowly moved out into open water. The town behind him faded into the mist. Jack was alone, or at least he thought he was. After a few minutes, he noticed something odd. The nets were piled a little differently than how he left them the night before. A coil of rope lay on the floor, twisted in a strange shape. And near the edge of the boat, a small puddle of water shimmered in the light. It wasn't from him. His boots were dry, and he hadn't brought ice yet. Jack frowned. Maybe a bird had landed and knocked something over. Maybe he was just tired. He shook his head and kept moving forward, thinking about the fish he hoped to catch. As he reached deeper water, Jack turned off the engine and began setting up his gear. He moved toward the back of the boat to check the storage bin. Then he heard it. A sound. A soft noise, like something moving under a pile of nets. Slow and careful, almost like someone was trying not to be heard. Jack stopped. His heart started beating faster. He stepped closer, his boots creaking on the wooden floor. The noise came again, a quiet thump. He held his breath and pulled back a corner of the net. There, curled up in the shadows, was a boy. The child looked no older than 6 or 7. He had dark hair, pale skin, and eyes wide with fear. He wore a thin blue hoodie and jeans that were torn at the knee. He hugged his knees to his chest and didn't say a word. Jack blinked. For a moment, he didn't move. Then he slowly crouched down and spoke softly. "Hey, kid, what are you doing here?" The boy didn't answer. He just stared at Jack, like he wasn't sure if he was safe. "It's okay," Jack said gently. "You don't have to be scared." The boy still didn't speak. He looked around the boat, then back at Jack. His lips trembled like he wanted to say something, but couldn't. Jack didn't know what to think. How had this kid gotten onto his boat? Had he snuck in while Jack was unloading gear yesterday? Was he hiding from someone? He looked closer and saw something strange. The boy had a plastic wristband on his arm, like the kind you get in a hospital. Most of the writing was smudged, but one word was still clear: Micah. Jack sat back slowly, his mind spinning. This wasn't just a lost kid. Something was wrong, really wrong. And the day was only just beginning. Jack sat beside the boy, unsure what to do next. The child didn't cry or speak. He just sat there, hugging his knees and staring at the wooden floor of the boat. Jack's mind was racing. He had never found a child on his boat before. This wasn't something he was prepared for. He tried again gently. "Are you hurt?" Jack asked. The boy didn't answer, but he slowly shook his head. "Micah," Jack said, pointing to the wristband on the boy's arm. "Is that your name?" The boy looked up, surprised. He gave a small nod. Jack smiled a little, trying to be calm. "Okay, I'm Jack. You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you." Still no words, but Micah seemed to relax just a little. Jack stood and went to the small cabin, where he kept a first aid kit and some snacks. He brought back a bottle of water and a granola bar. He opened them slowly and placed them on the floor in front of Micah. Micah didn't move at first, but after a few seconds, he reached for the water and took a few small sips. Then he picked up the granola bar, unwrapped it carefully, and began to eat. Jack watched him, feeling a mix of relief and confusion. "You hungry?" Jack asked. Micah gave a tiny nod. As the boy ate, Jack noticed something else. Micah was holding something in his left hand, hidden under the sleeve of his hoodie. It looked like a toy, but not one Jack had ever seen before. It was a small gray device with smooth edges. On top was a tiny screen with a red blinking light. Jack leaned forward slightly. "What's that you got there?" Micah pulled the object close to his chest and shook his head quickly, eyes wide. He looked scared again. "It's okay," Jack said softly. "I won't take it. I was just wondering. He sat back and gave the boy space. Whatever that thing was, it clearly mattered to him. Suddenly, Micah looked up and pointed toward the shore. He made a small sound, like a gasp. His face was filled with panic. He pointed again, faster this time. Jack turned around and looked toward the coastline. Nothing was there, just the calm sea and the distant outline of trees and buildings. He turned back to Micah. What is it? What did you see? Micah didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of folded paper. His hands shook as he handed it to Jack. Jack opened it carefully. The note was written in shaky letters, maybe by Micah himself or someone helping him. It said, "Don't let them find me. If they see the light, they'll come. Please hide me." Jack's stomach dropped. He looked again at the blinking light on Micah's device. "Who's coming?" Jack whispered. Micah looked at him with tears in his eyes. He didn't speak, but Jack didn't need him to. He suddenly understood something very bad was happening. And whatever that blinking light meant, it wasn't good. He stood quickly and looked around his boat. They were still far from land, but now he felt like they weren't alone. Something, or someone, might already be watching. Jack's mind raced. He looked at Micah, who was still clutching the small device tightly in his hands. The red light blinked steadily, like a warning signal. Jack felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The note, the boy's fear, and that strange blinking toy, none of it made sense. But he knew one thing. Every second counted. "Micah," Jack said softly, kneeling down to the boy's level. "What's happening? Who's coming for you?" The boy didn't speak, but his eyes filled with fear. He hugged the device even tighter. Jack's heart sank. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a random situation. It was serious. Jack reached out, trying to be gentle. "Listen, I don't know what's going on, but I need to know. I want to help you. Can you trust me?" Micah hesitated, then nodded slowly. The boy's small hands trembled as he handed Jack the device. It was heavier than it looked, and the blinking red light seemed to pulse faster now, almost like a heartbeat. Jack turned the device over. It looked like a simple toy at first glance, but the buttons and the screen didn't make sense for something a child would use. There were no labels or markings, just a smooth, gray surface. As Jack examined the toy, he noticed something strange. There was a small display on the front, and it showed a timer counting down in bright red numbers. The numbers read 3214. Jack stared at it for a moment, his confusion growing. He turned the device back to Micah, his voice shaking a little. "What is this? What's it doing?" Micah's eyes flickered to the timer, then to the shore. He seemed to be waiting for something. Jack looked out toward the horizon, but there was nothing in sight, just the open sea and the peaceful sky. "You need to tell me," Jack said urgently. "Is this a bomb? Is it dangerous?" Micah shook his head quickly, his eyes wide with fear. He started to back away, clutching the toy at his chest like it was his only protection. Jack felt his stomach twist. If it wasn't a bomb, then what was it? Jack's mind started to work faster. 3214. 32 minutes. What did that mean? Was someone coming after them? The thought made Jack's heart race. He had to do something, but he didn't know what. He turned the boat's engine back on, the sound of the motor breaking the quiet. Jack looked at Micah, trying to stay calm. "We're going to head back to land. Maybe the Coast Guard can help." Micah looked at him, his eyes filled with terror. He started shaking his head. "No," he whispered. "They can't find us." Jack didn't know what to say. He couldn't understand why the boy was so afraid, but it was clear now that time was running out. The countdown was ticking away. 31:48. Jack gripped the wheel tighter, steering the boat in the direction of the nearest dock. His mind was racing, trying to figure out what was going on. Who was after Micah? What was that device? And why did the boy seem to be running from someone or something? As the boat cut through the waves, Jack noticed something in the distance, a shadow on the water. It was far off, but it seemed to be moving toward them. Jack squinted, trying to make out what it was. His heart skipped a beat. It was a dark shape in the sky. It was moving fast. Jack's eyes widened as he stared at the dark shape in the sky. It wasn't a bird. It wasn't a plane. It was something much bigger. The object was moving fast, cutting through the air like it had a purpose, and that purpose was coming straight toward them. His heart started to pound. He turned quickly to Micah, who was sitting on the deck, his face pale. Micah was staring at the sky, his hands clutching the strange toy even tighter. "Micah," Jack said, trying to keep his voice steady. Is that what you were talking about?" The boy didn't answer. He just nodded slowly, his eyes wide with terror. Jack didn't know what to do. The shadow was growing bigger and closer. The countdown on the device in his hand was ticking down faster now, the numbers flashing as the seconds passed. 27:12, 27:11. It was like the clock was pushing them forward, forcing them into a race against time. "Who is that?" Jack asked, his voice low and tense. "What do they want?" Micah didn't answer. He just kept looking at the shadow, shaking slightly. Jack knew that Micah was afraid, but there was something else in the boy's eyes now. A kind of understanding, like he knew exactly what was happening, even if Jack didn't. Jack looked back at the sky. The shape was huge now, growing larger with every second. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was a machine, sleek and dark, with sharp edges and glowing red lights. It was a drone. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He had heard of drones being used by the military, but he never expected to see one out here on the open water. And not like this. This wasn't a routine surveillance mission. This drone was hunting something, or someone. Jack's hands gripped the wheel tighter. He pushed the throttle forward, trying to make the boat go faster. The water splashed against the sides, and the engine roared in protest. He wasn't sure if it would be enough to outrun the drone, but he had to try. Every second counted. Micah looked at the device in Jack's hand and then back at the drone. His face was pale, his eyes filled with fear. "They'll find us," he whispered. "You have to hide me, please." Jack felt a wave of panic wash over him. He wasn't sure what to do. He had to get away, but there was nowhere to hide on the open water. The drone was fast, and it would catch them soon if they didn't act. The countdown was getting closer and closer to zero. 24:47, 24:46. Jack's mind raced. He thought about the note Micah had handed him, the words begging him to hide the boy. But hide him where? How could he protect him from something like this? The drone was almost upon them now. It was moving fast, its red lights blinking as it zoomed through the sky. Jack could see its outline clearly now, and he could feel the pressure building in his chest. The air around them seemed to grow heavier. He could not run it. He couldn't hide from it. But he could fight. Jack made a snap decision. He grabbed the emergency flare gun from the cabin and fired it into the air. The bright red flare shot up, bursting into a shower of sparks. The drone veered sharply, its lights flickering for a moment. Jack didn't know if it would work, but he had to try. "Hold on," Jack shouted to Micah, pushing the boat to its limits. The flare shot into the sky, and the drone seemed to hesitate, as if it had been momentarily distracted. Jack couldn't waste any time. They had to escape. 22:31, 22:30. The countdown continued, but Jack wasn't sure they had enough time. The flare shot high into the air, lighting up the sky with a burst of red. Jack held his breath, watching the drone. For a brief moment, it seemed to hesitate, its red lights flickering like it was confused. Jack's heart raced, but he didn't slow down. He couldn't. Micah was depending on him. "We've got to go faster," Jack muttered to himself, his hands gripping the wheel tightly. The boat surged forward, its engine roaring as it cut through the waves. The drone was still following them, but now it was moving slower, distracted by the flare. Jack didn't know how much time he had before the drone realized what was happening and came back after them. 20:59, 20:58. Micah was still sitting at the back of the boat, staring at the drone with wide, terrified eyes. He didn't make a sound, but Jack could see his small body shaking. Jack's chest tightened. The boy had been through something awful, and Jack had no idea how to help him. All he knew was that time was running out. Jack looked back at the drone. It had stopped following them for now, hovering in the air, as if waiting for something. Jack kept pushing the boat forward, his eyes scanning the water ahead. He needed to get to land, but the nearest dock was too far. He couldn't outrun the drone for much longer. They had to find a way to hide, but where? Micah, Jack called, glancing over his shoulder. Is there any place we can hide? Somewhere the drone won't find us? The boy didn't answer at first. Then he spoke, his voice quiet and shaky. The cove, Micah whispered. There's a small cove. It's hidden. The drone won't see us there. Jack's heart skipped a beat. A cove? Can you show me? Micah nodded, his eyes still glued to the drone in the sky. He pointed to the right, toward a part of the coastline Jack hadn't noticed before. Jack could barely make out the outline of the cove, tucked away between two rocky cliffs. We'll have to hurry, Jack said, steering the boat toward the cove. He knew they had no time to waste. The drone might start looking for them again any second. 1945. The countdown continued, the numbers ticking down faster than Jack wanted to see. The boat sliced through the water, heading toward the cove. Jack's mind raced, trying to think of what would happen if the drone found them. Would they be able to escape? Could he protect Micah? As they got closer, Jack noticed that the cove was smaller than he expected. It was hidden by the cliffs, but it wasn't very deep. They could park the boat there, but there was no guarantee the drone wouldn't spot them from the sky. It was their only chance, though. Hold on tight, Jack said, trying to steady his nerves. He guided the boat into the narrow opening of the cove, the water growing calm as they entered the sheltered area. Jack killed the engine, letting the boat drift gently to a stop. The cove was quiet, hidden from view. The cliffs on either side blocked the drone's line of sight. For a moment, everything felt still. Jack held his breath, listening for the sound of the drone, but all he heard was the soft splash of water and the distant call of seabirds. Do you think it can see us? Micah asked in a small voice. Jack didn't know the answer, but he didn't want to lie. He looked up at the sky, hoping the drone had lost their trail. The minutes on the countdown were slipping away. 1822, 1821. We have to stay quiet, Jack said, and hope it doesn't find us. For now, all they could do was wait. The cove was silent, the only sound the gentle lapping of water against the boat. Jack sat at the back of the boat, his eyes fixed on the sky, waiting. The drone had been gone for a few minutes now, but Jack knew it could return at any time. The seconds on the countdown were slipping away, and each tick made the air feel heavier. 1745, 1744. The numbers flashed on the device in Jack's hand, the blinking red light growing more urgent with every passing moment. Jack felt the weight of the situation pressing on him. He couldn't let the boy fall into whatever danger was chasing him. Not now. Micah, Jack whispered, turning to the boy who was still sitting quietly, staring at the water. You need to tell me more. What's going on? Who is after you? Micah didn't answer right away. His eyes were distant, like he was remembering something he didn't want to. Jack could see the fear in the boy's face, but also something else, a sadness, maybe even a sense of loss. After a long silence, Micah spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. They're not human, he said. The people chasing me, they're not human. Jack frowned. What do you mean? What are they? Micah shook his head, his eyes darting nervously to the sky. They're machines. They look like people, but they're not. They're machines sent to find me. Jack didn't know what to say. He'd heard of strange things happening in the world, but this was something beyond his understanding. A machine that looked like a person. It sounded like something out of a science fiction movie. Why are they after you? Jack asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Micah looked down at his hands, his fingers still gripping the device tightly. Because of the toy, he whispered. They want it. They'll do anything to get it. Jack glanced at the blinking device in his hand. It didn't look like much. Just a small gray toy with a red light, but now he understood that it was more than that. It was something these machines wanted, and it was the key to keeping Micah safe. The toy, Jack repeated. What does it do? Why did they want it so badly? Micah bit his lip, his eyes full of fear. I don't know exactly, but I know it's important. I'm supposed to protect it. I was told to keep it safe until the time comes. Jack nodded slowly, trying to make sense of everything. He had no idea who these machines were or why they wanted the toy, but it was clear that Micah was the only one who could keep it away from them, and Jack had promised to help him. 16:30, 16:29. The countdown kept ticking, its red numbers flashing in Jack's hand. Time was running out. Jack looked up at the sky again. The drone had to be out there somewhere. It wouldn't give up. And when it found them, things would get much worse. "We can't stay here much longer," Jack said, standing up. "We need to move. If we don't, they'll find us." Micah nodded, but his face was full of worry. "They'll come. They'd always find me." Jack took a deep breath, trying to think of a plan. He couldn't just stay in the cove and wait to be found. They needed to get off the water, somewhere safe. But where? "There's a small town further up the coast," Jack said, making a decision. "If we can make it there, we might be able to find help." Micah didn't look convinced. What if they're waiting for us? Jack didn't have an answer for that. He didn't know who these machines were or how they worked. But he did know one thing. If they didn't move now, they would never get the chance. "We'll have to be quick," Jack said, starting the boat's engine. "And quiet. We can't let them hear us." The engine roared to life, and Jack guided the boat out of the cove. The water was calm, but he felt a tightness in his chest. They had to get away. They couldn't wait any longer. 15 o'clock, 14:59. The countdown continued, the seconds slipping away as they sped toward the unknown. Jack kept the boat moving as fast as it could, his eyes scanning the water and the sky. Micah was silent beside him, still clutching the strange device in his hands. The red light continued to blink steadily, and Jack's heart beat faster with each passing second. The countdown on the device showed 13:30, but he didn't know what would happen when the timer reached 0. All he knew was that they had to stay ahead of whatever was hunting them. "Micah, are you sure this town is safe?" Jack asked, trying to keep his voice calm. He was steering the boat toward the coastline, but the further they went, the more worried he became. What if the machines were waiting for them there? Micah nodded, though his face was pale. "It's small. Not many people know about it. It should be safe, for a little while." "Good," Jack said, his eyes darting to the sky again. The drone hadn't appeared yet, but Jack was sure it was still out there, looking for them. 12:45. The countdown kept ticking away, the numbers flashing in Jack's hand. Time was running out, and Jack couldn't help but feel like they were being hunted. It was as if they were being chased, but by something that never stopped, something that wouldn't give up. The wind picked up, and the water grew rougher as they moved further from the cove. Jack steered the boat carefully, trying to keep the speed steady, but the waves made it hard to control. He glanced at Micah again. The boy was staring straight ahead, his small body tense with fear. He was holding onto the toy as if his life depended on it. Jack's thoughts raced. What could that toy possibly do? Why did they want it so badly? And who were the people or machines chasing them? He shook his head, pushing those thoughts aside. He couldn't afford to think too much. He needed to focus on getting to the town. Once they were there, they could figure things out. Maybe they could find someone who knew what was happening. The coastline was getting closer, the outline of the town just barely visible in the distance. Jack's heart lifted a little. They were almost there. But then, he heard something that made his blood run cold, a low buzzing sound in the air. Jack looked up quickly, his breath catching in his throat. There, in the distance, was the drone. It was coming straight for them, faster than before. The red lights on the machine flashed, and Jack knew they didn't have much time. "Hold on," Jack shouted to Micah, pushing the throttle to full speed. The boat shot forward, cutting through the waves, but the drone was closing in fast. Jack could see its shape clearly now. It was sleek and dark, its engines humming as it sliced through the air, and it was getting closer with every second. Micah gasped, his eyes wide with fear. "They're coming." Jack didn't answer. He was focused on the water ahead, trying to make it to the town before the drone caught up. But the distance between them and the drone was shrinking too quickly. They would make it. 11:12. 11:11. The countdown continued, the red numbers glowing like a timer counting down to disaster. "Jack, they're going to catch us," Micah cried, his voice shaking. Jack's mind raced. He could see the town just ahead, but the drone was nearly on top of them now. There was no way they would make it in time. They had to think of something, and fast. He glanced around the boat, looking for any kind of cover, any way to slow the drone down. That's when he noticed it, the small, rocky island just off to the side. It was barely visible in the distance, but it could be their only chance. If they could reach it, the drone might not be able to track them. "Micah," Jack said urgently, "get ready to jump. We're going for that island." Micah didn't hesitate. He nodded quickly, his hands clutching the device even harder. Jack turned the boat sharply, heading toward the island with everything he had. The drone was closing in fast, but they weren't giving up without a fight. Jack turned the boat hard to the left, heading straight for the small island. The drone was closer now, its red lights flashing like an alarm. Jack could hear the hum of its engines, growing louder with every passing second. There was no time to think, only time to act. "Micah, get ready," Jack shouted over the noise of the engine. Micah nodded, his face pale but determined. His hands still clutched the strange device tightly, as if it were the only thing standing between them and the drone. Jack didn't know what it did, but he knew it was important. They had to keep it safe. The island was coming up fast. Jack steered the boat toward a narrow gap in the rocks, a small inlet that would give them some cover. It was their only chance to escape the drone. He had no idea if it would work, but they had to try. 9:30. The countdown was getting closer to 0. Jack's heart raced as he pushed the boat even faster. The drone was almost on top of them now. He could see it clearly in his rear-view mirror, its sharp edges glinting in the sun. It wasn't just following them anymore, it was hunting them. "Hold on tight," Jack yelled, as the boat hit the edge of the island's rocky shore. The boat bounced roughly over the waves, but Jack kept it steady, heading toward the gap between the rocks. Micah's grip tightened on the side of the boat. "Don't let them catch us," he cried, his voice full of fear. Jack didn't answer. He was focused on the island, trying to guide the boat through the narrow opening. The rocks on either side seemed to close in around them, but Jack's eyes stayed on the path ahead. They couldn't stop now. Just as they were about to enter the gap, Jack heard the drone's engines roar behind them. It was right there, almost above them, its red lights flashing like it was ready to strike. Jack gritted his teeth and swerved the boat left, narrowly avoiding the sharp rocks that jutted out from the island. They were close now, so close. The boat slammed into the side of the rocks, but Jack didn't slow down. He steered hard, making a sharp turn into the inlet. The boat hit the water with a loud splash, and for a moment, everything went quiet. Jack quickly killed the engine, and they coasted into the narrow inlet. The rocks around them shielded them from the drone's view. Jack's heart was pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure if they were safe, but for now, they were hidden. Micah looked over at Jack, his eyes wide with fear. "Will it find us here?" he whispered. Jack didn't know. He didn't have an answer, but he knew that they had to keep moving. They couldn't stay in one place for too long. 8:12, 8:11, the countdown continued to tick, but Jack ignored it for now. They had bought themselves some time, but not much. He had to think fast. "We'll wait here for a moment," Jack said, his voice low. "Then we'll move on foot. We can't stay near the water." Micah nodded, still holding the toy tightly. Jack watched the skies, waiting for any sign of the drone. The minutes dragged by, each one feeling like an eternity. Finally, after what felt like hours, Jack turned to Micah. "Are you ready?" Micah didn't say anything. He just nodded, his small face set with determination. Jack helped him out of the boat, and together they began walking toward the rocky path that led up to the island. Jack knew they had to get as far away from the water as possible. The drone would be searching the area, but if they could get deep into the island's hills, they might have a chance. They didn't speak as they moved, both of them focused on staying quiet and hidden. Jack's mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do next. How would they escape this? How would they survive? But as they climbed higher into the island, Jack felt a flicker of hope. They had made it this far. Maybe they could make it all the way. 7 o'clock, 6:59. The countdown continued, and Jack knew they were running out of time.